That's really scary.
Would it be less scary if it was white?
Actually, yeah. Is that interesting? It'd be a little more
No.
Really?
Not for enough of Brent.
No, it's just.
We're all good to go?
Yeah, we're just recording this.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
as soon as I get, let me get where I need to be.
Everything online?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. It's going to take me a minute.
Yeah,
It's going to take me a minute. I totally forgot to clear some cache real quick.
There we go. Okay.
Oh, see? You get to see it.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for
Hi.
coming. And hello to everyone on the internet. And the thing we're all talking about is that there's this brand new camera that can catch me and the screen, and it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. I'm afraid it's scanning my DNA right now. Anyway, I'm super excited about this. Every time Brent comes to talk, it's just, we're so lucky to have this connection. Dr. Wilson is Associate Computer Science Chair at the George Fox University. He's a working developer, he's an author, he's an educator, and he's an all-around great guy. And from the very beginning of this school, he's been there to advise me and my co-founder on matters of technology, including why this thing just shut down.
It's just because it's not data yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and I'm not ready for it, so that's
Totally fine. And as part of his work as an academic professional, he is constantly researching the most important areas of technology. He's here to present to us today on matters of computer security, which, I don't know, kind of important if you've been paying attention to the news headlines. And I'm really, really glad he's here. He's working with some technical aspects of his laptop right now, so it'll be a moment until it appears on screen, if he appears on screen at all.
I'm not going to appear on screen.
See, he's afraid of the retina scan.
I am.
Anyway, please help me in welcoming Dr. Brent Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, do well.
So,
Live.
I'm live. All right, awesome. So what I'm going to do for the folks online, I will try to remember, everybody here help me, to go back to this document so that they can see what's going on. I have hard copies for everybody because we're going to be taking a look at it, and I want you to see some actual syntax and stuff. So, actually, we have the top one there. It's not a back-to-back. So if you can grab one and pass it on, that'd be awesome. Thank you. So let me tell you a little bit. Okay, I will just for a moment sneak into the camera view. Okay, that's good. I'm kidding. So let me tell you a little bit about what my plan is over the next next 3 Fridays. When we start talking about what's a possible topic, the turnover here is your program's 15 weeks, is that correct?
15, 20 weeks full time.
15, 20 weeks. So typically I get some turnover, a lot of turnover actually, by the time I come back around, and it's like I wanted to move through a number of security topics, but it's like I start at the beginning, and then 3-4 months later I come back and I start at the beginning, and I thought, oh, this is not working. So we're going to do a 3-part series. The idea is on secure coding, just minimizing vulnerabilities. We're going to look at everything from web all the way to when we get to the final day, 2 weeks from today. We're going to actually be smashing the stack, and we're going to get in and actually start manipulating some actual memory and hardware and stuff like that. And so what I want to do is I want to, for those who've been at some of the beginnings, we're going to sort of do that again. And I apologize up front for that, but there's a lot of faces I don't recognize. And so I want to get a grounding, a foundation that we're going to work with. And so today we're going to start with the classic, which is an injection attack. And we're going to do more than look at it. We're going to do it, and you're going to do it, and we're going to actually do some pretty amazing exploitation on it, okay? And we're going to go through, and then we're going to talk about, well, how do you mitigate it, right? Because just teaching you the offense, you got to know the defense. Now, there's two different camps in cybersecurity right now, especially in cybersecurity education. There's the camp that says we need to teach all defense. We need people who can defend, and that's what you know. And then there's the camp that says, well, if you don't know your threat environment, you can't defend anything. And so there's the other camp that says that defense comes through offense and understanding the offense in order to be able to build a good defense. That's the camp I'm in. In fact, last week I just got notified I just got a paper published on doing defensive security education through offensive hacking. Yeah, it makes my administrators a little nervous, but that's okay. It's a good thing. So what I've done is this last year, I went through, I taught a secure coding class for the first time as part of our cybersecurity concentration at George Fox. And we went through, and every week we looked at a new category of vulnerability. And I walked them right through it, and we actually did it. We exploited stuff in a controlled environment. And then always talked about what are the defenses. How do you defend this? And so today what we're going to do is we're going to start with the injection, and we're going to move through that. Last time I did that here, I hadn't anticipated just the smallness on the screen of some source code, and people were like, you're listening but not seeing. And so I said, let's sort of regroup, go back through that to some degree, take it further than we did. I just did a simple, how do you access something with an injection attack. Today, we're not only going to access, but we're going to start changing data in the back end through injection. And we're going to actually compromise a number of accounts using injection. So we want to take it a little bit further so you can see how that works. And then also I wanted to make sure you guys had actual source that you could read. I didn't give you everything because we're going to get to a point where I'm saying, okay, now you tell me. You've now learned this. We now want to do the following. What's the syntax that I need to inject in order to make this work? And we'll talk through that. So that's sort of the plan today. Next week, I'm looking at doing a number of additional sort of web-based attacks is where we're focused initially. And then on the last Friday, we're going to go sort of outside of the web and go to your traditional shrink wrap software and start looking at things like buffer overflow and zero-day vulnerabilities and things like that get really nasty and really ugly really fast. And so just to give you that. Now, I will tell you this. Everything that you learn in these 3 weeks is to be used for good and not for evil, right? The whole point here is to create better cybersecurity folks. And for a lot of you that are going to go into development, it isn't so much that we're creating cybersecurity experts here. That's not my goal. What my goal is when you sit down to write a code, the first thing second thing that you should think is, have I just introduced a vulnerability into my software? Because if you don't think about that, you did, right? And so that's where I'm coming from, is I want you to think about how you code, what are the things that you do that could cause vulnerabilities. And I can tell you right now, next week is a little eye-opening. The number one thing that every single person in this room and me have done for years, and I have to admit, I have software that has vulnerabilities. I totally know it, right? Everybody does. The number one thing you do is you rely on others. You don't write 100% of everything from scratch. 100%. You don't write the OS. You don't write the servers. You don't write Apache. You don't write IIS. You don't write, you get where I'm going? You write a very small piece that relies on massive amount of systems. You are hoping that those are secure, and they're not. And that's where you get compromised. So we're going to look at that next week, and I'm going to actually show you how you can go and find actual vulnerabilities in all these software. Anybody in here, say, do a web page using WordPress? Is it secure? I think in 2016 up through the first quarter of 2017, there was over 1,200 vulnerabilities found in WordPress. Just saying, right? So those are things, and you know what the number one vulnerability in WordPress has been over the last year? Injection. We've known about it. This is not new. It is not new. This has been around since the dawn of a database system. But anyway, so that's sort of the plan. What I'd love is feedback as we go, just a conversation. This is not meant to be, talking head lecture up here. That is, I am not that kind of person. I don't like that. I love just having interaction. You'll probably ask me questions that I don't know. Right? I am not a master of everything. Of course not. I know this much. All right? The key here is that collaboratively, we are smarter than any one of us in this room individually. Okay? And so as we go through, we'll work together. I may have a lot of letters after my name, but you got to realize what they stand for. Right? You know what BS stands for. And MS is more of the same. And PhD is piled higher and deeper. All right? Just so we're all clear. All right? Anyway, I saw a hand. Yes, ma'am.
For me, I'm new to this. Is it
Excellent. Yes, that is awesome. See? This is why we start at the beginning every 4 months. That's why I'm going to do 3 weeks in a row. So the idea of a SQL injection would be, well, first off, let me see. Is everybody able to see this decently, relatively decently? There's not going to be anything really any smaller than what you see up there. It's just a standard little login. What's that? Oh yeah, that'd be great. Lights off. Then I really don't have to get into the front of the camera. So this is excellent. Does that help? Okay. So this is just consider this, your bank website, whatever. It's a standard web application. You have a database on the back end, right? Are you familiar with what's called like either LAMP stack or WAMP stack? Have you heard those phrases or anything like that? Okay. When you build a web application, typically the components of that is that you have a database, right? You have what I'll call middleware. It's a little squishy there, but which really represents, and you guys are doing most of your stuff in what? You're doing ASP.NET? Is that what you guys are working in majority of the time? Okay. But that could be PHP, it could be VB.NET, it could be ASP.NET. It's the code that sits sort of on that server, so when someone hits a web page, it executes and then provides the page. Does that help? Okay. So that's sort of the middleware. Then you have sort of the client-side coding, which typically is JavaScript for the most part, that then on the client-side front end, you're able to maybe pseudo-validate information and whatever else you want to do. So when we talk about an injection, what we're talking about is how do I, as a user, type something into those boxes that makes this thing do what it's not supposed to do and gives me the advantage, okay? Now, you can think of this as, nice, that's such a good question. I'd go for an hour on that question. All right, anyway, as software engineers and software developers, and this is the other thing I want you to take away from anything that I present with you guys, and that is that we have millions of software developers out there nowadays, worldwide. And the vast majority of them think in two cases when they're developing software. What is my use case? What is it supposed to do? Is it working correctly? Does it have the right functionality? And what is my error case? What happens if the data is wrong? How do I don't want it to throw an exception and crash, right? Or if the user types something bogus, right? If they ask for their age and they type Bob, I don't want to throw up on a type mismatch or something like that. So most developers think of use case and error case, but there's a third case, and that's misuse case. And that's the one that we've got to get developers starting to think about. Because as a use case, I could come along here and I could type, I'm going to come in as Alice. I think it's either Alice Seed. Nope. Okay, that would be like an error case, right? And then a use case would be if I actually got the password right. Alice, I did see that. How about? Okay, assuming I could get the password right, and it logged in and did what it's supposed to. So that's use case. Misuse cases. What can I do to type something in here so this application now acts not as planned? Okay. If you think about a login like this, standard login, a developer is going to design this expecting that this information is going to get passed to the server, and either 0 records come back because it doesn't match, and I say, sorry, this account doesn't exist. Or maybe 1 record comes back, which I actually logged in correctly and I'm in as Alex. All right. Is there a way that I could do other things? Is there a way I could type code in that would give me all the records? And if all the records came back, now what does the app do with that? I don't know. It could crash it. It could create like a denial of service because you could take it down. It could just simply say, I have all these records. I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to take the first one. Alphabetically, typically, what's the first account? Admin. And so a lot of times it will log you in as admin right away. Okay. And so that's an example. What we're going to do is we're going to use SQL injection, SQL, I say SQL, but SQL injection to not only get logged in here, but then we're going to start manipulating data. We're going to change accounts. We're going to change people's salary, and I don't have authority to do that. Okay? And we can do that through SQL injection.
So injection is getting a command to execute on database from an unexpected entry point?
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking of it. And as we go through this, the reason that SQL injections have been around since the birth of the web, and they're still around, and they're still the #1 security flaw. How stupid is that, right? I mean, we've known about it. Why? Because we have folks who aren't thinking of the misuse case. And a lot of basic databases and basic applications, are they developed by software engineers? Not a lot of them. A lot of graphic designers are doing it now, right? They'll put together their stuff and they'll use WordPress or whatever, and they can throw out a quick app. Well, if WordPress allows for SQL injection, you're toast. All right, so does that help answer that question? That was a really long answer to a very short question. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is, again, for those folks at home, what I'm working on is I'm working on a virtual machine here, a Linux machine. Everything I'm showing you is PHP, although towards the end I'll show you some VB.NET and C# solutions as well, so that you have some reference. But conceptually, this is the same no matter what the language. And it can be solved exactly the same way, no matter what the language. Okay. So, so the first thing, our first task. So I'm going to walk through this document with you. Our first task is we want to log in as admin. I don't know the password. I have no rights or privileges at all, and I want to get into this. Well, what I've given you on this sheet, and was there enough? There should be plenty.
There's extra right on that table right there.
Okay. So there should be plenty. What I've given you is the 3 PHP commands, and again, this isn't a class in PHP. I'm not really worried about that. But what I want you to look at is, and this is probably a good question. How many people have not done SQL at this point? Okay. All right. So we got 1 to 2. So that's fine. Hang in there. So everybody else, some of this, so everybody's a select statement for the most part is familiar to you. All right. So right at the top of the page, this is the actual select statement for the web page that we were looking at, which is select the ID, name, employee ID, salary, birth, SSN, phone number, address, email, nickname, password. Select all of those things from a table called credential. And then my filter is where the employee ID equals, that's a variable pulling from the actual web page, so whatever I type in there, and where the password's equal to whatever I type in there. Okay? That is the basics of that. So what we want to do is we want to type something in that is malformed that gets us in. How do we get in as admin? Well, at the end of the day, we could get into admin really easy if we could nullify the password requirement. If I don't have to enter a password and all I have to type in is admin, I'm in. So we got to ask ourselves, how can we take that SQL statement and nullify the password? So take a look at what I have in red. What if we typed in quote space or name equals the string admin, semicolon, which ends that SQL statement, space, hyphen, hyphen, space, and I just put the X there just to make sure I had a space after the hyphen, hyphen. That could be anything. That's totally irrelevant. But you have to have a space after hyphen, hyphen. What is a hyphen, hyphen in SQL? Comment. Yes. It basically says comment from here to the end. Ah! You just saw it. So, if you take that and we put it in for where the employee ID is, look at the SQL command at the next one down. Select all that stuff where EID equals quote, quote, right? Because I'm using the black quote. I hope you can see the black and the red. The first one is black. That's part of the SQL string, part of the code. The red one I entered. So I'm checking to see where the EID is equal to a blank string or name equals admin, and then comment the entire rest of the line. Well, you're not going to find an employee ID that's admin, right? Everybody remembers your Boolean logic. An OR statement, you need only one to be true for the whole thing to be true. So as soon as I hit the account where name is admin, I'm in. I don't have to do anything with password. So let's try that. So let's go over here. I come in, I'm going to type in quote, space, or name equals admin, semicolon, hyphen, hyphen, space. And this, like I said, it doesn't matter what you type here. I typed the X just so I knew I had a space after the double hyphens. That's what was important. Okay, don't have to enter password. I don't have to do anything. All I have to say is go get information. And I'm in. And immediately, it shows me all of the users and it shows me their profiles. Alice, Bobby, Ryan, Sammy, Ted, and admin. Shows me their employee IDs, their salaries. Sorry, I apologize for that. I had something else Never mind. For those online, sorry about that. My watch just dinged, and we just talked about being addicted. I apologize. Anyway, so we have all that information. Now we can't really do anything with it. It just showed it to us. I can log off. The only other thing I can do is I can edit profile, which is my profile. See, here's admin. And I have the ability to change those 5 fields only. So I can't do anything else. Now, does that answer what an injection is? Right? Immediately, and the issue with an injection, any type of an injection, is that you're allowing user input to be executed. Should never allow for user input to be blindly executed. That's the key. The mitigation for this when we get to the end is to figure out how can we take that information, instead of have it be executed, how can we bring it in literally as just a string? And we're going to use it as trying to do a string match. That's all we want to do with it. You never want to execute what they type. And that's why injections are so fatal, is because you just blindly execute that code. All right, so that's the first task. Good job. Questions? For those that are new, I loved the aha moment in the back. That was awesome. All of a sudden when you see it, you're like, oh my gosh. Right? Really easy. Okay. Again, I'm not sure what your SQL skills are, so we're going to, I'll give you something else here. We want to change the admin's salary to $500,000. Notice in my profile, the application doesn't allow me to change salary. So I'm going to have to do this through some sort of an injection attack. All right? So I've given you the actual if-else PHP statement from this. When I hit the button edit, it runs that if-else statement. Oh, for the people online, sorry. Okay, so a standard update query, right? Update table, and then you have your set field name equals value, comma, important. Field equals value, comma, field equals value, comma, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Where, and then whatever your filter criteria is, right? So when we hit edit on this screen, it's going to execute this if-else statement, which basically comes in and says, if the password is blank, then we're going to execute the first SQL statement, which means they're not trying to change their password. They're not updating their password, right? If the password is not blank, then obviously they're trying to change their password. So you would fall into, if it's not blank, sorry about that. Bang equals. If it's not blank, then you go ahead and update everything, including the password. And if it is blank, then you do the else clause, which notice does not update the password. Does that make sense, everybody? Everybody good with that? Okay. If anybody's not on any of these, just holler. Okay. It's a simple double alternative if statement, if else statement. Okay. So how do we change Alice's salary to $100,000? Now I've not given you the answer. You tell me. How do we change it? What do we need this SQL statement to look like? Can anybody tell me? We've got to have a salary equals in there, don't we? We want the field salary to be changed. Okay? So let's say if we look at the actual page, okay, nickname is the first thing. If we look at the code, nickname is going to get put right here. I've highlighted it up there in blue, make it yellow, it's easier to see now. Notice that, oops, it should also have that dollar sign. So I want to somehow put something in that replaces everything that's yellow, and it changes my salary, say, to $500,000.
You're assuming the salary is in your credential.
I am. I am, and I'm telling you it's there.
So could you say?
And actually, we did know that. So we saw it initially.
So could you say quote?
Hold on, let me get there. All right, so quote, which is gonna do what?
And make an empty.
Good. That ends the nickname. Perfect.
Space.
Oh, well, not right here. Let me get logged in. Yeah, I'm in the wrong spot. Okay, so that's going to end the nickname. Space, comma. Good. Now I'm going to add a field in.
Salary equals 100,000.
Or whatever we wanted to make it. I forget what we said. 100,000?
Really?
Yeah. 100,000. Okay.
Probably close.
Why?
So that it
Look at your SQL code. It's already there. Because it's everything where the nickname is. What's at the end of the nickname variable? A close quote. You're going to utilize that. So we'll go back to this here real quick, and let's do that. See that you have those two end quotes. You started with a quote which paired with this first one to close it. Then you did comma, salary equals a single quote, 100,000. Stop there, because that'll close it. All right, so let's go ahead and see what happens. And we hit edit, and admin has a $100,000 salary. Okay, now for a little fun. For those who've never seen this before, right about now you're like, this is not good. For those who have, bear with me. We're going to, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to dive in much deeper. But understanding injection is that's a great foundational place where you start. So what if we wanted to compromise Alice's account without logging in as Alice? Now, obviously, we've proven we can log in as anybody by just getting rid of the password. And then once we're in, we could edit profile, and that's pretty easy. But what if we wanted to, without logging in as Alice, we want to actually change Alice's password to Tech Academy? Okay, that's what we want to change it to. Now, I will tell you this. The information that we've been able to gather from this particular target, all the passwords are stored in the database using SHA-1 cryptographic hash functions. So it's already it's a hash function. They're being stored as hashes, not as clear text. Never store passwords as clear text. All right. So now that you know that, what does that mean to us? That means that we don't really want to store or change Alice's password to the Tech Academy. We want to change Alice's password to what? To the hash of the Tech Academy. Right. So then it's like, okay, well, we have to do that hash. And there's pretty easy way to do it. I'm not sure how many folks, how many Linux geeks I have in here. Anybody? 3 or 4? That's about what I expected. Okay, so in the Linux world, and you can just do this PHP, which is pretty easy. I wrote the little PHP script that you see at the bottom of this file, or bottom of this page. Oops, for those who are online. I got to remember that. Apologize. Okay, so for this little PHP script, basically SHA1 is a hash function, and you can just access it, and you can give it whatever string you want to give it, and it will give you back what the hash is using that algorithm. So what we need to do is find out what that hash is, and then somehow we need to be able to put that into, say, Alice's password. Okay? So the first thing, let's find out what that is. To do that, and again, this is not a class in Linux or anything like that, but I'm just going to quickly, I'll show you the files there. Okay, there's the simple file, and now I'm going to just run it. PHP, gen. All right, so there's the hash for the Tech Academy. All right, so I need to get that into Alice's password. How do I do it?
We haven't done the part where we change Alice's salary yet.
Oh, thank you. Oh, we changed ours. Thank you for keeping me on track. I had already jumped. Okay, let's go back. We'll come back to this. So what we want to do is, you're right, Alice is our friend, and she's only making $50K. So we want to bump that. We want to double that, and we want to update her her salary. How do we do that? What's that? Same way what?
You have to change what ID you're working with. You have to change the where statement.
Okay, so right now, when we did, let me log in, edit profile. Now we're in as admin, and when we came along and did that, that changed our salary, because the where clause is using our ID, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is admin. So you're right. We have to
Change the where. to-
change it. Change the where.
Take the phone number. They did have the where clause.
You could use just about anything here, including this. You could use any of them, right? Yeah, because you can comment, you can just trash everything. So right now, we got salary going to 100,000. I don't want to use the closed quote that I was given. Let me finish it with our own closed quote. And now what? Yeah, now you need to get your where clause in. And we know where ID is equal to Alice. Semicolon, dash, dash, space, and I'll just put something in there, X. So now I'm going to comment out everything else. Just blow the whole rest of the SQL line away. Hit edit. And Alice doesn't have it. What did I miss? Oh, did I change? No.
You changed into ID.
No.
You use where employee ID is Alice.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no match there.
Yep.
Yeah, employee ID is the numeric value.
You want to say what name?
Yeah, see, Alice has an employee ID of 10,000. Okay, so I put that in there
Yeah, so that.
because I had it listed. I stole it.
But if you didn't know that,
But if you didn't, you could say name equals out.
right.
Right.
You could use different columns.
Absolutely, you could use different columns to do that.
And even change it for a lot of people.
Yes, you could, couldn't you? Just take that where clause out. You change it, everybody. That might be suspicious.
And that's how I got caught changing grades.
Yeah. Oh.
Straight A's.
La 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 la. All right, I am missing something. Oh, I'm doing EID. Let's do EID. I'm not sure why my Alice is not working. We know that EID is a field from earlier. Salary.
In SQL, you typically avoid having columns named all caps, right?
Yeah, and this database is really poorly designed. Some are capped, some are lower.
Intentionally, right?
Yeah, probably. This comes out of another university said I could use this, so I have not written this. I'm simply using. All right, let's see what we have. EID. Let's try that one. Yay! There we go. Now we got it. We got her up to 100K. All right. So now we can go to task 3, which was how do we change her password, right? Well, we know that there's password has to be a field because obviously it's being collected, and so basically we want to do exactly what we just did here, except instead of salary is 100,000, password equals the hashed value, and then let's see if we can log in as Alice. Okay. So
But doesn't the edit field also have a input for the password?
what's that?
The edit field, it already has a password. You can change it there.
Yes, for admin.
If you change the employee ID, can you just input the text there?
Oh, and have it hash. You'd have to.
Yeah, when the hashing for the
Because it's getting hashed.
Right, it is getting hashed. I think you may be correct. Let's give it a shot. So if we did, so you're saying let's do. Well, we don't have to do anything, right, with her salary.
Just at the end,
You're just saying let's try this. Okay, I'm actually typing the. No, I don't want the. Let's go. Tech-Academy. Oh. Now where do we get our where clause in here? Although, can we put the where in here? You're not going to see it.
Copy and paste the text.
Yeah, you'd have to probably write it out to ensure, because obviously this field is being masked, and so if you had a syntax error, you're not quite sure.
Whatever you can do on password, you can do it on any other field.
That's right, because you're gonna comment out the rest of the right.
When you look at your query, nickname is the first field, and to eliminate potential errors, I would think you would comment out as much as possible. So start with the first field and don't do anything else.
Yeah, that's typically where I would go on this as well. Let's start in the first one. So let's try it. Let's give it a shot. So if we close nickname, comma, password equals.
Now this time I recognize
I think so, because it's not coming in the field. It's not coming in the actual password field, which would probably be hashed within that.
Why would that be though? Because you're going to hash it. You have to hash it first because in your.
Are we setting the password or comparing it?
We want to set it. And see, in here, you're just seeing the update. So the hashing, everything would have happened up above. So I think we have to actually do the hash here.
because
Right. So let me grab.
If you just type in the PHP variable for the password from AAA, or something you can do.
Oh, I don't.
It's doing like a string replace.
Right. I'm not sure it would execute that function. Yeah, it goes in as a string, but then it's probably hashed before it hits this if else.
Can it request by before the update is
Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's try this. Serves me right for not testing the last thing before I came. All right. So if I paste that in, and then we're going to say where EID equals 10,000, if I was correct. And we're going to end it, comment everything else out. Okay. Alice Tech Academy. Okay, gonna have to work on that one.
10,000. The employee ID is 10,000. No, the ID.
Did I do something wrong?
The ID you have to type as 10,000.
Yeah.
Oh. What? I'm not even looking at the prompts. 10,000. We're in
Oh, wow.
with Tech Academy as a password.
This is not going to work if they solve it,
Right. Absolutely. You can very easily mitigate all this. So it does not work. The injection attacks don't work. But people aren't doing that. And so and there's a lot of other things there's a lot of other ways to prevent it as well, which we're going to look at over the next couple weeks. But for just the basics, for anybody that's, sort of, how do I prevent this for beginners, so to speak? Parameterize your queries. Don't execute user input. Bring it in as a string and drop it in as a parameter. And then it's going to be a literal string, not going to be executed. And that immediately removes the injection attack. I mean, here's an example on the selects. And I got all the funky word underlining here. Sorry about that. But as you can see, for those who have the hard copy, right? I mean, you come in, we create whatever our query string is, select everything from customers where cities equal to @city. There's a parameter. And then you can actually add what is the value. And you'll see 2 lines down, okay, @city, that's going to be, and maybe there's, text, txt city is a text box out there. I'm going to get the text out of that. I'm going to trim it. And that's what goes in as the parameter. So it's not getting executed. It's coming in as a literal string. And so you can type anything you want. You're not going to get through with an injection attack. And it's so easy to fix. And yet, even according to OWASP, for those who are familiar with that, Open Web Application Security Project. I'm like, okay, what's the next letter? Their top 10 vulnerabilities of the entire internet. Number 1, injection attacks. Number 1. And it's one of the easiest things to prevent. And we're not doing it. We as a community. So, significant. I think it's significant. So, I realize if you've been here before, we've done injections before, and I do apologize for doing it again, but I know of at least one who hadn't. And so, we'll be ready where we'll dive in and do more. This coming week, we'll look at, I'm going to probably end up doing an example of a cross-site scripting for you. I'm going to look at some other types of vulnerabilities in the OS top 10. I'll probably pick maybe 2 or 3 to walk through. And the probably the last one is really looking at how do you know that the components you're using are secure. And if they're not, and they probably aren't, what are you going to do about that? Is that a risk you can take, right? You have to do some risk assessment. Is that risk low, or is that risk high? And there's a site that goes through all of that for you, and you can look up anything you want. You can look up your version of whatever operating system you're running, and that particular build, you can put it in and you can see the vulnerabilities. And so, what's
about CVE, those
yeah,
humble, those
right,
database,
yeah,
And you should qualify that for known.
yes, absolutely. That's the known.
Yeah.
It's not. That is an excellent point.
Yes.
Right.
If you want to buy a camera, if you want to buy anything that's connected to the internet, but the
Right.
CVE database, take a look at how many vulnerabilities been exposed, at least document.
Right, and that's why the whole point of sort of coding securely or understanding how you can introduce vulnerabilities just by doing things that we've always done. Well, we've always done it that way. Well, it's wrong, right? I consulted for a company where they were doing, this is really scary, because I'm being recorded, I cannot mention names or anything, but let's just say nationwide client dealing with federal compliance of particular things. That's about all I can give you on that one. And they were doing it software as a service, and so they had a lot of very, very large companies that were using their product. And they came in, they were having some problems with a particular development area, and brought me in as a contractor to take a look at it. And the first thing I saw was their connection string in this web app was automatically admin. Okay, that means I have total access to anything. All I got to do is compromise one page, I got everything. Are you kidding me? Right? And so it's the whole principle of least access. You should never, just because it's easy. If we just gave everybody admin, then you can just do your job. We don't have to worry about no. What do you need to be able to do your job? What's the minimal amount of access you need to be able to do your job? That's the access you should be allowed. And so there are a number of substantial vulnerabilities that are out there, and people, developers, would just do it because that's the way it's always been done. And when I pointed that out in that particular instance, they're like, well, but we've always done that. Okay. Exactly, you've always been wrong, right? You need to make a change. So, and a lot of times, I'm going to beat up on my own generation, but boy, we get locked in our ways. And we do things and we think we're comfortable with it, and this is just the way it's been. And we have to step back and look at, the environment's changing, right? The threat environment is changing. Take all the IoT stuff, right? All the Internet of Things is completely changing the perspective on security. Last time I was here, did I talk to you guys about cyber wars? Okay, no one said yes.
Yes.
I did. Okay. How many people want to still hear it? Okay, I'll do it, especially for those that are online as well. You can purchase, I think it's a documentary that was done by a Canadian production company, and they go through and they look at some of the most recent and major hacks and everything from they even go clear back to Stuxnet, all the way forward to the Sony hack and all sorts of things like that. They
Isn't that a series on Vice?
it was on
Yeah.
Viceland.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I made my students watch that. We every Sunday night for like 15 weeks at the university we're in watching that in the auditorium. If you're not concerned about security or scared about it now, watch the series. It's intense. I know that. Let me just bring up a basic browser here. Let's go Amazon. And I know you can pick it up. Cyber Wars. I think you can pick up the first series. Cyber War, Series 1. Hopefully they'll have the second series out there. So, $19 for Series 1. This is what's on Who's Anonymous. And it's interesting how Anonymous actually started. It sort of talks about the history on that. And talks about the Sony hack and cyber mercenaries, China, Syria's cyberfield, Stuxnet, hacking the infrastructure, America's elite hacking force, Anonymous versus ISIS, Ashley Madison hack. Everybody remember that? Maybe. Hopefully not. Hopefully you know nothing about that. Israel lights out Ukraine. They took Ukraine. They took the entire power grid down in Ukraine. So, yeah, they did. They did. They just did it again. So anyway, it is pretty amazing. And so if you have Comcast, you can get and you have the whatever package you have. If you get Viceland, you can get it on demand there, and both seasons. You need, if you're planning to watch it, you need to have a good weekend because you're going to binge watch this thing. This is not a one episode now, I'll tell you that.
SQL questions.
Yeah.
If I may.
Yeah.
Does SQL have a way of evaluating the expressions within a string? I'm a JavaScript guy mostly, so we have ES6 now, template strings, all right.
Right. No, I know where you're going. That's a good question.
Yeah, they've added everything with PostGIS to it. Why don't they add
Yeah.
none of this and security stuff?
And it might be the flavor of SQL too, you know. I know that, you know, the other thing on this that you can do, at least on to prevent this versus parameterize, is they have like prepare statements in PHP, and I know that in some of the other languages you can do like the template string type stuff, similar. But I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'd have to check that out.
Can I ask, and this might you might not want to answer because it might be purely offensive and not very helpful defensively.
That's all right. I think everything offensive is a good. It's
Okay.
important for defense.
So in all of the work that we just did here, we were able to look at back-end code
Right.
and know where we are injecting things, which is very helpful. But if I were to go to this website and want to maliciously change my salary without
Right.
accessing back-end code at all, I've got to discover a few things. I've got to discover that this is SQL in the first place and then figure out where I'm injecting. What are strategies for that?
You got a 98% chance of hitting it.
With SQL.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be rare that you're going to find something that doesn't use SQL. It's going to be rare that you don't find something like this that the field name isn't salary. It's going to be rare. You see what I'm saying? I mean, there's.
I don't want to manage a database where all of my column names are hashed themselves.
Right, and it's there's such a common way of doing things. You can hit 80 to 90% just based on what we traditionally do.
I figure, for example, what I would want to do is start by getting a list of the existing tables, and then I might be able to use for do
Yeah, that. Yeah, and you can do that.
Did you select all?
Yeah, you could. I mean, depending on, you got to figure out what the back end is. Is this a MySQL? Is this a SQL Server? Because based on that, you could query a system database. There's a variety of things you could inject in there to do, and it's going to depend on what is the access rights that connection has been established. If it's injection vulnerable, chances are you have admin. Because again, they're not going to, if they don't even secure it for an injection attack, chances are they didn't know not to give it least access rights. Right? I mean, you're sort of counting on the somewhat stupidity of us, right? I mean, of developers and or database admins, and not really stupidity. That was poor. Anybody online, I apologize. You're really counting on, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, just habit. Just habit, right?
Well, like you pointed out, you're relying on the security of software like you're not an expert.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we're totally relying on the fact that the things around us are secure that we're using. Yes, ma'am.
Add to that, though, I think you're also relying on project and budget. Sometimes, even if you care, you're not given the time and the access to do something.
That's true. And for everybody online, I should be repeating all of these questions. I apologize again. The comment was that you are also relying on budget and resources, and so even if you care, you may or may not have the ability to do anything about it, which is true.
Real
That's
quick,
right.
It's going to cost the company a lot more to hire you to come in as a consultant to fix mistakes that were made because they didn't give you enough time to do things securely in the first place. That's my argument to my boss, is if you don't give us the time to do this securely right the first time, you're going to have to hire somebody else to fix it later on. It's going to take a lot more money in recovery.
Sure.
If
Well, it's going to cost them a lot more than that
Yeah.
after when they breach.
Oh, and especially if it's a public breach.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, we. I think I know I told this group probably a year ago or whenever, but I had a student discover a data breach. One of my students discovered one from a government agency in Columbus, Ohio, and he didn't think he emailed me on a weekend and said, "This doesn't look right." And I went and looked, and I'm like, wow, that is some really good bogus data. Because I always enter like Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, things that if you looked at my tables, that's bogus data, right? And I'm looking at this looks like real names. So a quick Google search, oh my gosh, it is. This is everything. And what it was employment applications. Think what you put on an employment application. It was absolutely everything. And so I ended up, since it was a governmental agency, it was Sunday, no one's in. So, I called him Monday morning, first thing Monday morning, and just said, you have a data breach. And I said, I need to talk to, highest in command at your office, and I'm sorry, I'm just a temp receptionist. Can you call back in a couple hours? Okay. So I did. I called back, and eventually I got the VP of IT, which was the highest person in that particular building that was responsible for that. I said, you have a data breach, and explained it to her. Went and showed it to her, and then I said, I'd be more than happy to work with you if you need assistance. Oh yes, please. Wait, stop. This could be a social engineering attack. You don't know who I am. I just called you, right? I said, here, I say that my name is Brent Wilson and I work at George Fox University. You go search for George Fox University, because I'm not even going to tell you their number. You call the switchboard and have them transfer to my office, and if I answer, that should be a validation for you. Oh yeah, that's probably good. So she did, and she called, and I spent a couple hours, and we got everything taken down, and then she was like, "Oh, okay, that's good and everything. I'm glad that's all taken care of." And I jokingly said to her, I said, I typically don't go out and read, small town newspapers, because this was actually a suburb, a little bit outside of Columbus. I said, I don't really read, small town newspapers much, but I might read yours online over the next couple days. Oh, well, no one's going to know about this. Wrong. Okay, that's the wrong response. You need to be very transparent. Everybody has to know. So then I took her out to the Federal Trade Commission. Here's the steps that you have to do in case of a breach. And you've got to notify every single person. You have to offer credit monitor. I mean, it's going to cost you some money for this. And and you could tell by the end of our call, she was this was not a good Monday. And probably one of her worst Mondays, I would guess. And
Or the best, because you saved it.
well, or the best.
You could have just said, I don't want to deal with this mess. And then they didn't know, and they're out
Right.
there, and their junk is all laying out there on
Right.
board.
Well, and it was live, right? And it's for people who are applying for jobs. And as we're talking through it, there was only 499 people that were on it. And while we're talking, ding, 500. Two more people had applied as we're talking. Now I know their stuff's secure because no one saw it except for us, unless someone was looking at that very, very instant. But still, it's there. It's in the breach. They need to be contacted. And so at the end, finally, I said, as we were hanging up, I said, I need to be quiet more. I should have just said, thank you, have a nice day. But I finally just said, I said, there is a silver lining to this. She goes, really? Tell me, please. I said, yep, I don't have to prepare a security lecture for tonight. So, she was not happy. But again, it's someone that should have known better, right? I mean, whether you have the technical skill, you're responsible for that. You made the decision to move from a PDF online that you downloaded and filled out and dropped off at the office to an online form, and you didn't take the time to make sure everything was secure. I mean, it's sad.
How did your student come across that?
He came across it because it was actually a link to that spreadsheet was in a thread on StackOverflow.com. He was researching about capturing data and populating to a spreadsheet instead of a database, and he was following a thread of somebody who wanted to do the same thing, and somebody was helping them, and they put this link in there. Here's my spreadsheet, which the link, when they were probably using it, had nothing in it. So he could see what the columns were, so he understood what the fields were. It made total sense. But then they went live. And it has the same entry point. You're exactly right. So then, all of a sudden, whatever bogus data probably was there during that threaded conversation is no longer there, and it's all live data. So anybody researching that topic would have found that lead and goes right to it, and here's all these people. And an employment app, think about it, right? Name, address, driver's license, social, birthdays. I mean,
That's what's good about it. So in Google, you can shorten your URLs, and then when you're done using them, just delete it.
right, that helps.
That's not perfect.
Right. Well, and this actually was a Google Doc problem. That's particular one. This was a Google sheet, and if you've used Google Sheets or Google Docs, Google has done a really, really nice job on collaborative working. Right. That's the one thing they have excelled at. Right. To be able to have 20 people working in a single doc at the same time. Awesome. Versus the bazillion emails as we pass them around. Right. So that's a good thing. But in this case, if you do Google Docs, there's a share in the upper right-hand corner that you can share the doc, and you can give people access to it via a link. And there's also, if you go, I forget what menu it is, there's something called Publish. that does the same thing, can do the same thing. So it's two different, it's very, very similar functionality in two different locations. And turning one off does not turn the other off. They are disjoint functionality. So what happened in this situation is this person wasn't real sure what they were doing. They turned them both on, got it all working, forgot about the publish piece of it, and just up top it said it was, open. They clicked it, so now it says private to only me, so therefore it must be private to only me and the entire world.
So the publish, what's the difference between get a shareable link that you can share with the world and publish? Is publish actually has it become a searchable document in their data in their searching?
I'm not sure if it's shareable. It's a read-only view when you do publish.
Read only is all you do? Yeah, read only is it.
Oh, I know it's all you need, right? Because the share you can then grant editing access. So I think that's the difference in those two. You can on the share, I think, also give just a read-only, which I think now is identical to the functionality of publish. And when you have that link, then you're just watching it, and data comes in, and you just watch it come in. I think
Publish, can you discover that without having that shareable link?
I don't know.
Because that's what it sounds like to me. What's the difference between?
Right? Yeah, sure. It makes it sound like it would be searchable, right? I'm not sure. Great questions. For those that are online, I know the Q&A is a little tough to follow. I think I'm going to bring it to closure for those that are online. I appreciate anybody who was there, if anyone was there. And I will gladly hang out for probably another 20 minutes or so here and chit-chat with anybody. Next week, I'm going to make sure I'm here on time. And also, I'm going to have to cut when it's 2. I got to cut and run next week because it's the state Special Olympics games, and my daughter and I compete. My daughter's a Special Olympian, and I'm her partner, and we compete down in Corvallis. So I have to get to Corvallis Friday evening. So and I'll be in downtown Portland at 2. So you do the math. So anyway, just so everybody knows, so next week I'm not going to hang out much, but I can hang out for a little while. Can I get some assistance cutting this off?
Yes, I'll defer.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more frivolous question right at the end?
Absolutely.
Did you see the XKCD comment about little Bobby?
Oh, little Bobby Tables? Oh,
Yes.
absolutely my favorite.